This happened in late November of last year. I work as a part-time pet sitter in a small town in upstate New York. Most of the jobs are pretty uneventful. Feed the dog, walk them, clean up a little, and lock up. But this one messed with me. A woman named Karen had hired me through a friend of a friend. She was leaving town for a funeral and needed someone to look after her cat, Willow, for 3 days. I usually don't take new clients without meeting them first, but she sounded desperate and offered to leave the key in a lockbox. The house was in a very quiet, wooded neighborhood about 10 minutes outside of town. I agreed. It seemed straightforward. The first day was fine. The house was small and cozy, older but well kept. One of those places where the walls seemed to hold the quiet in. Willow was a friendly orange tabby who greeted me at the door and followed me around the house as I did. Everything, feeding, changing water, scooping the litter box. But something about that house felt off. I don't really know how to explain it. The air felt still, but heavy, like it hadn't been disturbed in a long time. Even though Karen clearly lived there, there was a back bedroom that gave me the creeps the moment I saw it. The door was shut tight, and there was a thick strip of painter's tape across the frame. Nothing said, "Do not enter," but the tape alone was enough of a message. Didn't touch it. The second night is when things got weird. It had snowed lightly that day, and when I arrived around 7 p.m., it was already dark. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and immediately noticed something strange. Willow wasn't at the door. She always came running the moment I opened it, meowing like crazy. But not this time. I called her name and looked around the living room. Nothing. Then I heard it, a low, dragging sound from the back of the house. It was faint, like someone sliding a large piece of furniture slowly across wood flooring. I froze. It sounded like it was coming from that shut room. I walked toward the hallway and called out again, "Willow?" I tried to laugh at myself. Maybe. She knocked something over. Cats are weird, but the sound came again. Drag, I stood there, staring at the taped door, my heart pounding. I didn't want to go near it, but I had to make sure the cat was okay. So I took a deep breath, slowly walked to the door, and pressed my ear to it. Silence. Then a sharp sound, a single thud, like something had fallen or hit the floor hard. Jumped back and just stood there. I must have stood there for 5 minutes, just listening. Nothing else came. No dragging, no thudding, no Willow. I left the house not long after. I couldn't bring myself to open that door. I refilled her food and water bowls quickly, called her name a few more times, then left. The third and final day, I almost didn't go back. But I couldn't just leave the cat, so I made myself do it. This time, I came during daylight. Around 11 a.m., the front door was exactly how I left it. Nothing looked out of place. But when I walked inside, I immediately noticed something that made my stomach twist. The painter's tape on the back bedroom door was torn. Not like it had peeled off from time or heat. It was torn right down the center, as if someone had ripped the door open. But the door was shut again. This time, Willow came walking out of the hallway like nothing was wrong, brushing up against my leg. She seemed totally fine. Normal. I stood there in the hallway for a while, just staring at that door. I wanted to open it. I felt like I had to. Like whatever was behind it needed to be seen. But I didn't. I finished my duties, gave Willow some attention, and left. Later that evening, Karen texted me to say she was home. She thanked me and said everything looked perfect. I stared at that message for a long time before replying, and I almost didn't say anything, but I couldn't help myself. I asked, "Hey, quick question. Was someone staying in the back room while you were gone?" The one with the tape on the door? She didn't reply right away. It took almost an hour. When she did, all she said was, "That door should never be open, ever. Please don't ask me about it again." That was the last. I heard from her. I've never taken another job near that part of town.
I used to work the night shift at a 24-hour gas station when I was 20. It wasn't the worst job, decent pay, quiet most of the time. Just me, a bunch of snacks, and some truckers passing through. This happened during the winter, sometime around 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, dead of night. I was sitting behind the counter, watching something on my phone, when I noticed a car slowly pulling into the parking lot. I looked up, expecting them to park near the pump or walk in, but the car just stopped, turned off its headlights, and sat there. Now, we get all kinds at that hour. Drunks, wanderers, weirdos. So I wasn't immediately alarmed, but something about this car felt off. It was an older model sedan, maybe a Honda or a Toyota, with tinted windows. After about 2 minutes, the driver's side door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, wearing a gray hoodie pulled over his head and baggy jeans. The way he moved was slow, almost too slow, like he wasn't in a hurry to go anywhere. He didn't walk toward the door, he just stood by his car, staring. I sat up a little straighter behind the counter and checked to make sure the door was locked. It was. Then, without warning, he turned and walked to the side of the building, out of view from my window. That's when the motion sensor lights on the side of the gas station kicked on. I got up and went to the side window to try and see where he'd gone, but he was just gone. There was nothing there. No sound, no footsteps, no movement. Then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. But it wasn't from the door. It was from the back of the store, somewhere near the stockroom. I froze. The only way to get to the back door was from inside, and I hadn't heard it open. No beeps, no door chimes. I looked at the cameras. Front of the store, empty parking lot, empty. I clicked to the back camera and saw something that nearly made me drop the tablet. The man was standing at the back exit, not moving, just standing there, staring directly into the security camera. Not knocking now, just watching. Then the feed, glitched, just for a second, but when it came back, he was gone. I ran and locked the office door behind me. I didn't care what company policy said about staying out front. I stayed in there the rest of the shift with the lights off. At 5 a.m. when the next shift showed up, I told him everything. He laughed at first, said I probably imagined it, said it was just some weirdo playing a prank. But when I showed him the camera footage, he stopped laughing. The timestamp showed the man at the back door, then just static. No other frames. He never left, never came back around, never drove off. We walked out to the back of the building together before I left. The snow had started to fall again, but we could still see the footprints. One set, leading from the side of the building to the back door, but none leaving.
This happened during a solo road trip I took last spring through New Mexico. I'm the kind of person who likes driving long distances alone, music up, windows cracked, no one to answer to. My plan was to take a scenic route down through a few smaller towns before hitting Santa Fe. I didn't have a set place to stay each night, just figured I'd pull over at a motel when I got tired. One night, I ended up in this tiny desert town, not even on my original list. It was getting late, and I saw a little neon sign flashing vacancy next to an old, one-story motel. It looked like something out of the 60s, faded yellow paint, buzzing lights, and no one around. I went inside the front office, rang the little bell, and a woman appeared from the back, mid-50s, polite but cold. She checked me in without much small talk and handed me a real key, not a card, for room for. The room was what you'd expect. One bed, old TV, creaky ceiling fan. It smelled like dust and carpet cleaner. Still, I was exhausted and didn't care. I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and knocked out within minutes. Sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly, no noise, just that feeling like your body knows something before your brain does. My mouth was dry, and my skin felt cold. The room had gone dead silent. Even the ceiling fan had stopped. Then, I heard a knock. Tap, tap. Not on the door, on the window. I sat up in bed and stared at the curtains. The knock came again. Tap, 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 tap. It wasn't loud, it was slow, almost playful.
I checked the time, 3:17 a.m. I didn't move. I just sat there, holding my breath. Then I heard a whisper. Room 4. It was a man's voice. Right outside the window, I scrambled out of bed and stood off to the side, heart racing. I didn't want to open the curtain. I didn't want to see who or what was out there. Then the doorknob started to jiggle, soft at first, then harder. I backed away, slowly, grabbed my keys and shoes, and went into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I called the front office number listed on the check-in paper. No answer. The jiggling stopped. I waited. After a few minutes of silence, I crept back into the room. Everything was still. I peeked out the curtain. Nothing, but when I looked down at the door, there was something carved into the wood. 3 words, scratched in like someone had used a key or a knife. I see you. That was it. I grabbed my stuff, ran out, and got into my car. I didn't check out. I didn't tell anyone. I just drove. Later, out of curiosity and probably some lingering paranoia, I tried to find that motel again. I searched online. I even drove back through that town a few weeks later, but it was gone. No neon sign, no yellow building, just a boarded-up gas station and a couple of closed shops. Room 4 never existed.
This happened about 2 years ago, and it still messes with me when I think about it. I was in my mid-20s, living alone in a quiet apartment complex in North Carolina. It was a smaller building, maybe 8 or 9 units, mostly older folks, who kept to themselves. I liked it that way, peaceful, routine. I had just started a new remote job at the time, which meant I rarely had to leave my apartment during the day. The only time I'd really go out was late at night, just to get some fresh air and walk around the building. I'm kind of a night owl, so these 11 p.m. midnight walks became part of my routine. Nothing ever happened, not once, until this one. Night. It was early fall, I remember, because the air had that weird, in-between feeling, still warm but crisp around the edges. I had just finished a late dinner and decided to go out for a short walk around the lot. It was around 12:30 a.m. now. This complex was surrounded by a thin patch of woods on one side and a little drainage ditch on the other. There were streetlights in the lot, but the further back you walked, the darker it got. I made my usual lap, earbuds in, hoodie on, and when I got back to the front of my building, I saw something that made me pause. There was a man standing across the street, not moving, just standing, directly facing my building. At first, I figured maybe he was waiting for someone, or just out for a walk too. But the longer I looked, the more I realized something was off. He wasn't shifting his weight. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't even looking around. He was staring at my building, specifically at my window. Now I lived on the 2nd floor, and my living room light was still on. I'd left it that way before heading out. The man didn't move. He didn't look at me when I approached the sidewalk. He didn't react at all. Something about the way he was standing gave me this deep, instinctual discomfort, like every part of my body was saying, "Don't go inside yet." But I didn't want to make a scene, so I slowly walked toward the stairs, trying to act casual. Halfway up the steps, I glanced back over my shoulder. He was gone, just completely gone. There was no sound, no footsteps, no rustling. He'd just vanished. I rushed up the stairs, went into my apartment, and locked the door behind me. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I shut the blinds. I didn't sleep well that night, but nothing else happened. Not right away, anyway. The next day was normal. I worked, ran some errands, and tried not to overthink the weird guy from the night before. That night, around the same time, I sat on the couch watching something dumb on YouTube, and that's when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the window behind me. 3 slow, deliberate taps. My stomach dropped. I froze. Now, just to be clear, my apartment was on the 2nd floor. There's no balcony, no ledge, just a sheer drop to the sidewalk below. I didn't turn around. I see OULDN, single quotes. I stood up slowly, walked to my bedroom, and shut the door, locked it. I spent the night in there with the light on, lying in bed, trying to rationalize what I'd heard. Maybe it was a branch, a bird, something normal. I kept telling myself that until I eventually fell asleep. The next morning, I checked. The window there were fingerprints. Smudged, streaked, like someone had pressed their hand flat against the glass and dragged it down slowly. I called the police. Obviously, I wasn't trying to be dramatic, but something was very wrong. They sent someone out. He looked around, asked some questions, then gave me a pretty unsatisfying answer. He said, "Could be a prank, or someone passing through. We'll keep an eye on it." That was it. So I installed a camera in my living room, facing the window, one of those small motion-activated ones. That night, I sat in my room, watching the camera feed on my phone. The light from the street lamp outside gave the room just enough visibility. Nothing happened for hours, but at 3:12 a.m., the motion alert triggered. The footage started playing automatically. And there he was. Same guy, same hoodie, same stillness. He was standing outside my window, just staring in. He didn't tap this time. He didn't move. But after about 30 seconds, he did something I still can't explain. He tilted his head, like a dog trying to understand something. And then, he smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was wide, too wide. Like it physically hurt to hold that expression. Then the feed glitched for just a second, and when it came back, he was gone again. Next day, I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother an hour away. I didn't care about breaking the lease or losing my deposit. I wasn't going back. A few days later, I got a notification from the camera. Just one dot. It was a still frame dot, an empty window, but in the bottom corner, barely visible, was a handprint, right next to the glass. And the caption, "Motion detected 23:12 a.m."